What is up, everybody? Welcome to Sidekicks Comics. I am joined with my co-host, Rob at Rob's Fat Stack of Comics.
Hey there, comic friends and fiends.
How's everybody doing tonight? Let's see what we got in the comments. Las Cruces. Hooray. What's up, buddy? What's up, New Mexico?
Look at us racking them in.
I know, right? We got all these people right now. Let's say hello to everyone. We got Las Cruces 1971 and Las Cruces 1971. All right, guys. So, this week we're actually going to be discussing how we collect comics. How things have changed from this, this 50s and 60s to now, and how we personally collect. How we compared to how we used to collect as kids growing up, and then how we buy our comics and how we read our comics. So,
how you doing, Troy's reviews?
There we go. What's up, Troy? Start off with our weekly pickups, which mine are doing pretty sad on Thursdays because I don't really get to my real LCS till Saturday. So, one of the first books I picked up though is Scott Snyder's new book, Noctera. If you guys have ever seen 30 Days of Night, Pitch Black with Vin Diesel, and it's kind of a mix between those movies and Smokey and the Bandit. It's pretty damn good.
DJ in the house.
Oh, nice. We got DJ in here. We got No Good Comics, Super Jesse. So yeah, Noctera is a killer book. I mean, if you guys like Smokey and the Bandit in 30 Days a Night, and if they kind of met and had a baby, that's what you'd get right there. So there you have it.
Met and had a baby.
Then we got Infinite Frontier. This one I got to pick up. I haven't read this one yet, but I'm getting to it. This one I did read. This is a really good one right here. The new Swamp Thing. This is the B cover, I think. It's just the darker. I just like it better than the regular cover. And of course, the two Batman that I always get at this LCS. This is what is it? The Molly, what's her name?
Miracle Molly. Cameo. First appearance in Cameo.
And then it's it might be the new appearance of the Scarecrow's new outfit, right?
I think that's next issue.
Next issue?
I haven't read it yet.
This one, which is a wraparound. So why don't we get this over to Rob? Nope, we don't want that.
I see. We got Digger Jim in here. No Good Comics. Chip Getler. I saw Gary B. You fling through those people while I throw up some books here.
Yep. What's up, Anachronic? I'm glad you made one live show tonight.
Picked up the King in Black handbook. I have no idea what it is, but we'll find out. The Infinite Frontier that you grabbed as well there. I had grabbed 2 copies of Batman 106. Fortunately, I pre-ordered them because they wouldn't let you buy more than one V cover. But more importantly, look at that sexiness, the 1 in 25.
That is beautiful.
Yeah,
I love those sketch covers.
Yeah, especially when they do like that. That's pretty nice. The Gwenom versus Carnage, which I just read an article that was praising the take of the new Carnage with Molly, or with Mary Jane.
Molly?
No, Mary Jane. Sorry, I got that on the brain. The High Republic, along with the 1 in 25 variant.
Nice.
And the High Republic Adventures, along with the 1 in 10 incentive.
Very nice. What's up, Taylor? Speaking of Taylor, he's got a live unboxing right after this show.
And then the AB Berserker. I didn't go with any ratios on Berserker. I'm actually kicking my own butt for having picked up 2 copies of it, knowing that it's just going to be such an overbought book. I mean, was it 615,000 or something? And I don't know. 22% of them haven't even hit the stores yet, though, because all the chromium covers hadn't gone out yet.
Right. It's a decent read. I don't want to make any spoilers. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty brutal. That's all I'll say about that. It's a good book though.
Yeah.
My read so far of the week has been that Nocturna. It's Terra. It's been that blew my mind. I didn't expect it to be that good. So, but what we're talking about this week, guys, and I'm actually glad that that Anachronic Comics showed up for this one to take part in some of the live chat. Is how we collect comics, how it's changed from like the pre-50s, 60s, before there was actual, quote, comic book shop, when it was just Spinnerax, drugstores, the mailing subscription list that I wasn't real familiar with until Anachronic Comics had talked about it on his channel. And I guess Rob is pretty familiar with it as well. So, yeah. Well, so we'll lead into, go ahead, Rob.
Well, obviously none of us, or at least neither one of us, I don't know that anybody is in the group here. We've got a lot of people popping in here now. Good to see the days of going to the actual newsstands or the drugstore to pick up your comic books. That the kids did. That was before me. Although the newsstand books were there when I started collecting books. I was going to the bookstore at my on campus, or going to the spinner racks at Musicland, or at the spinner racks at the 7-Eleven or whatever else very similar. And there would be comics there that you could go through and you'd grab them, and everybody in the world is handled, and every kid is read, and as you're eating a chili dog and putting it back on the thing, and they're getting beat up and stuff, and then you'd take them home and you'd read them and pass them around with your friends and throw them in a box under your bed and all this stuff, right? So, those days were there, and I remember subscribing to comics as well. And
I never did that. I was I had the 80s, 90s, so we had comic book shops.
Well, we still had subscriptions going in because I was subscribing to comics even in the 90s. But Marvel you got them later, and you'd get them in the mail. By the time I got them, they weren't necessarily folding them in half to put them in a small envelope, but they would come in an envelope. They wouldn't necessarily have a backing board with them. It was just a raw book in an envelope that they sent out via the media mail. And when it got to you,
here's a good one. Go ahead, Rob.
Local candy store, local cops, yeah. So you'd get these books, and some of those subscriptions. I have a lot of Silver Age books in my collection that have, they're great books, some amazing books that look just beautiful, but they're capped where you're going to hit on it because they have a subscription crease right down the middle, because either they got folded to put into a smaller envelope to get shipped out, or when the postman came to the house to get that bigger envelope in the door or whatever, he folded it or put it in the mailbox or whatever else. And
or in the mail slot or whatever.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that they did that. That blows my mind that they would. I guess back then it wasn't all about reading the comic book. It wasn't about value or anything. So they would just fold your comic up and send it to you in the mail.
Yeah, the notion that comics work for kids is a fallacy, right? So comic books, there were kids comics and there were adult comics, just like there are today. There all those science fiction, the romance, the cowboy, there's all kinds of stuff that's there. Look at that. So yeah, you can sub for a lot of Marvel titles. There's nice readers, but don't expect near mint condition. Yeah. And for some people, that's the only way you could get your books, was to subscribe to them that way. Now, granted, with online shipping, as we talk about changing today, we've taken our subscriptions. Really, for a lot of us, we still have these subscriptions, but the subscriptions model has changed for us, right? Our subscription is now with what we're used to with the direct box, the pull box, or
pull list.
It was exactly. It wasn't as formal as it is today. When we were in the 80s and 90s, you went to as the direct market comic book shop began to expand, right? We start to have the experience that we're used to today, where they're going to have their regulars would get a subscription. Let's, hey, we'll make sure that you get your book, right? You're going to have it pulled for you when you come in. You can just grab your box. We're going to give you a discount, share with you some pass along discount, because we can know what to order and how many of a book to order, which is going to save us money by not having.
We're not going to lose versus what we are going to lose. You know, and like when I was collecting, like it was like, I think the late 80s and then early 90s, that was like the big speculation era, right? That's when that all started, when the print runs were ridiculous. You could get pretty much anything because they printed, 500, 750 millions of copies of comics. So that's why nowadays, these books are a little harder to get because the print runs are a lot lower.
Well, you have to think of it as like when it comes to buying for the initial kids, as a kid and a young adult, you're buying to read it, to enjoy the story. Today, there are people who are buying for collecting, but go back, that wasn't necessarily what was going on. In the 80s and 90s, you started to have some of that, but that's because people started to see comic books go for value, because there were some of the adults, as you grew up, right, you start to have that nostalgia for the things that you're on. So in the 80s and 90s, you started to have adults that were coming into money, that had grown up in the Silver Age, that now wanted to start to go and get, that the superhero growth of the Silver Age was phenomenal. That's what they grew up in, and they were nostalgia for that, and they could start to spend money on that. And it was now acceptable, or more acceptable, for the geek culture was the whole, with the explosiveness of the computer age and everything else, the geek culture starts to had started to develop, and it became acceptable for grown adults to have these large collections and spend this kind of, and we saw it in all the collectibles though. I mean, you had, if you remember during that time, people were going out and spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on a baseball signed by so-and-so, and
sports cards. Yeah. Sports memorabilia was huge for a long time.
Yeah.
Now it's the comic book world again, which
those things are going well too, but you have this boom that starts to come at that time, and that's where you now start, along with the direct market comic book shop that now starts to hold more inventory of back issues available in your shop, right? And this is the other key thing that starts to launch the tip. Previously, you're talking about newsstand racks. It kills me when I worked the newsstand rack at Musicland back in when I was working there, back in the day when there was a Musicland and Sam Goody Records in every mall, right?
Right.
That after that book was on the rack for 3 weeks. After that, it came down. You tore it up and threw it in the trash and logged it as being destroyed, and the company got its money back for the cost of it, right? There weren't these huge, there were places that had these back issues, and that's where if you go to those Copper Age, Bronze Age, and Silver Age books, you'll see on the back of them or inside them advertisements for back issues from places, because you had to mail order to get these back order issues. Now you have this specialty shop that starts to come about, and you start to have this whole industry starts to be born of being able to easily get these books and this collectability. You start to have this concept of, we got to, that there's value assigned to these things, and we're going to bag and board everything. And so we start having all this stuff, and CGC ends up being born, and, all this stuff starts balloon, and, people start thinking that their money, in the 80s and the early 90s, as people go there in mass thinking that, oh, hey, this, there's always this disconnect. They'd see the sale, the auction sale of Action Comics, first appearance of Superman sold for $300,000.
Or Batman, 2.2 million, right?
Well, I'm talking 80s prices, but still.
80s prices, yeah.
Yeah, but right, you see that. But so somebody goes, oh, hey, look, my comic books would be worth lots of money. Well, yeah, if everybody treats their comic books like garbage, and there's like 12 of them that survive, and you wait 70 years.
we're not
Right.
going to have that. The future generations aren't going to have that problem. Like what Anachronic was just saying, when he was a kid, he bought comics off just what he liked, and that's why people collected. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, they didn't look at it as collectible art. It was
stories that you read as a kid, characters you liked.
Exactly.
Or it was the characters you could get where you were at.
Exactly.
Your pharmacy, your drugstore, your bookshop, whatever, only had 2 spinner racks, maybe, of comics. You didn't have walls and walls of choices, right?
Yeah.
You had what there was there, and that determined what you liked, right? We've all some of us have watched Jimmy tell the story on his 10 questions many times about
his uncle.
Right. Well, no, his first foray in the supermarket and why he likes Firestorm. Right.
Yeah.
And that's because that was what was on the rack for him.
That's why I like Ninja Turtles, because that was like the cartoon in the first comic book that I got my little grubby little mitts on. And I was like, this is it.
That's why my first foray was with Fantastic Four. I don't read Fantastic Four today. I try. It doesn't appeal to me today. But when I started reading, I was reading Fantastic Four. And how I got into 2099 and all my love for the 2099 universe was because that was what was on the spinner rack at the bookstore on campus.
Yep. Now we're spoiled. I mean, that kind of leads into the next segment is, how we buy our books. And back when I was young, I bought even when I was a young adult, even when I actually had money, what I was buying was so minimal. I only like, A, B, and C. Now I have so many options. Independence just hit in the 90s, right? Like, was it 92, I think, was when Image? I don't remember. It was somewhere in the 90s.
Image was 91.
91.
Yeah, that's why we were joking that like the modern age is like 92. It's almost like right after the launch of Image is the demarcation of what's currently considered the modern age of comics.
Yeah, I'm
going to steal, by the way. I saw somebody refer to it. The 90s will now be referred to as the foil age. So I like that. Yeah, we had the bronze, we had the copper. The 90s will be the foil age. I don't remember who I saw coin that token. It was not me. I'm not going to claim Vic, but it's awesome. The foil age.
But even in the 90s, though, that's the thing. Like, I grew up like in, the Ninja Turtles and Batman and X-Men because of cartoons. Those were the cartoons I liked. Those were the comics that I gravitated towards. Now, we have websites where we can go on and we can look for, the next month of all these books that are coming out and previews, and we can know all these things. So now all of a sudden, my list of comics that I like to read has gone from 5 or 6 to like every 2 weeks I'm picking up 15, 20 books. And
picking up that many, but look,
it's changed a lot as far as what I'm reading.
But look, it's like I flip through these. I'm saying the A and the B, the A and the incentive, and this and this, and this and this, right? And is it part of it is FOMO? Sure. Some of it is just, depending upon what you're collecting for. I'm not just collecting it for the reading. I'm collecting it for the art as well. And some of them I do chase certain art covers, I buy
a ton just for covers. Ask Super Jesse. And another Anachromic Comics just did a video about that, about do we buy comics sometimes just for covers? All of us do. If you say you don't buy comics sometimes just for covers,
the Webhead, every purchase of that Webhead comic was a freaking cover buy. Nobody bought that for the story inside, I swear. Myself included, even though I read the story. But yeah, this is where we're at, and this explosion that's really gone. It seems to me, and I can't say this with certainty, but it seems to me the last year and a half, and maybe even especially the last 9 months in this COVID time, right, where we have a captive audience and stuff, and more stuff has moved away from the consoles. The number of these exclusives and not just Venom, but other titles too, the different number of covers that come out is absolutely insane. All these big online chains that are grouping together to get these covers, and It can be maddening if you have OCD or completionist syndromes, and you're sitting there going like, you're looking at this is probably the worst thing about having an app like CLZ to keep track of your inventory is to see how many covers you don't have and then go, oh my God, I only have 7 of 22 covers. I need to get more.
Yeah. When I first started my pull list, I would go into my LCS. I've got 2 of them. One's I call my real LCS and my fake LCS. But when I pick up a handful of books, when I pick up a stack of books, and I tell them, I'm like, look, these are my books on my pull list, and I'm constantly adding to it. And I always tell them, look, I want any cover that comes into this book, and I want any cover that comes into this book. And I think between me and Super Jesse, we have at least 6 or 7 titles that are any cover that come into that book. So yep. I mean, it gets out of hand sometimes, and I am a culprit for sure with that.
But that is our evolution, right?
Now, here leads into the other part is how we read our books.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure I differ from a lot of people, me and Rob for sure. Like I've at first, when I first got back into comics, I read, I picked up the physical comic and I read it. Now I've got this fear of getting my little fingers on them and touching them because of all this, spec and comics being worth whatever. Now I seem to read everything digital, and I just put my comics in a box. I mean, is there anybody else out there like that?
It's definitely not me.
Weirdo?
Yeah. So, I mean, as we're waiting for the feed to catch there, when I started to get back in to reading comics, I started reading them digitally. But then when I took my son, and that was like the beginning of the New 52 era, when I started getting back in again. And then I took my son to the local comic shop, would get him comic books so he could read them, because I wanted to encourage him to read. And then I started reading the books as long as I'm paying for them, right? And I tell you, I cannot stand reading digitally my comics at all, so I don't. I will read it. And yes, I'm very careful, and will make sure that I'm not like drinking from a glass and getting condensation on my hand, then grabbing the book and all the other garbage. But I will read the book. I know if I have multiple covers, I'll always, of course, read the one cover that I don't like the most. But
Silver Surfer number 1 9.0 sell on eBay today for $8K. That's what I mean. Like, these books are selling for ridiculous. There's like a cover of Something is Killing the Children. Super Jesse was saying that. I mean, and that book's within the last year, and it sold for $2,500.
Some of that. So some of that is, and that's where you get in. When you have all these different covers out there, though, sometimes you have to look at it. It's like, it doesn't mean that every cover of that is going that way, right? You get a cover that's some really high ratio or some exclusive premium that there's some limited number available out there. That's gonna play some impact on that, right? That High Republic book that I picked, that I paid $30 for the variant, and by the time it actually got delivered to me, it was selling for $300, right? Because there's only 600 copies of that cover available, and people get it. Yeah, the 1 in 1,000. Yeah, it's 20. Right. Yeah, pre-orders $2,500. Well, that's somebody's got to pay for 1,000 books, and some retailer's got to sit on all those. Or I got to imagine how many books are getting thrown in the fireplace and get used to start fires this winter.
No Good Comics makes a good point right there. I like the same thing. Like sometimes you could, your eyes will wander over to the next page, and you'll see that next panel, and you'll spoil it for yourself. With digital,
that's true.
It's easier to not spoil it for yourself, and what Jimmy was saying too, that's a very good point. Like some of the books that we don't have and that we can't get, that are out of our price range, or just we don't have and we'd like to read, digital is a great option for that.
It can, yeah, no, I don't doubt that at all, or even for my encapsulated books, right? I do pick up trades for that purpose. Again, I'm just a guy who, God damn it, I'm old. And I like to hold paper. And I even better yet, I like to go out and crack open my Silver Age books on newsprint and breathe deeply as I read them. I mean, let me tell you, I thought the greatest thing in the world was this last week when I received a shipment of a bunch of from a collection that I got of these Silver Age books, and my garage smelt like old newsprint for a week. It was wonderful.
Rob's that weirdo. Well, I'm that weirdo too. That goes into the tire shop and is like, I love the smell of tires.
Yeah, I don't know about tires, but
ENIAC. I've got a couple copies of that waiting for my LCS, and he's not the kind of guy that's going to sell it up from under me. Excuse me, but I can't believe that. Like, it's going for well over $100, and it literally, that's the Bad Idea Comics. They got like 5 other titles coming out, which I've got all pre-ordered as well. But it literally just came out Wednesday, and it's selling for $100 on eBay. Doesn't make any dang sense.
The spec market right now is crazy. I mean, I think part of it is people who are bored and just finding ways to do stuff. But I mean, overwhelmingly, the majority of these hot books that just came out that are selling for this amount of money, there is this much of a window for you to potentially make your money on it and get out of it before people move on to the next hot thing, right?
Yep.
There's not even a point. If you want to play that game, I almost think you don't even play the game of slabbing them. It's just you get it raw and you sell it fast. So fast and raw. That's the message I'm saying here. Apparently,
fast and raw
is because you want to get rid of it and kick it down the road and let somebody else get stuck with it. Before, because by the time you get into 3 months or 6 months at CGC to get your book back, the market's already moved on to the next thing. Right? So many of the books are like that.
That's the thing. Now, if you're buying it because you think it's going to be a hot book, it's probably too late. If you're already, unless it's like, months and months, if it's already about to come out or it's came out and it's a hot book, and it's probably usually too late at that point.
Yeah, Super Jesse. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. Especially some of my older books where there's, there's marks on it, and so you can see that. You think about the people who've used it, read it. The kid that I got one of my ASM 45s, one of my copies of ASM 45, or some kid has colored in all the eyes, and you remember doing it yourself, and you start thinking about those things and those connections to wonder what that person's like now. I mean, that's a whole nother aspect of the tangible, right? So that's very kind of cool.
It's true, though. I mean, these books have stories that we read, but there's also stories of all the people
the pages
that had those books before us that enjoyed those stories previously. So that's definitely not something that you can do digitally on a phone or on a computer. You don't get that from. So there's things that I like about both, but with the worry now of messing books up and pulling crotches off of comic books with tape, that's kind of scary.
I mean, yeah, I like to take precautions and try to preserve them as much as possible and everything else, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not into collecting comics thinking I'm going to make money. And if you are, then then you should own a shop.
Yes.
Because because if you're, I mean, it's great if I end up making anything if I ever decide to get rid of the books during my lifetime, then that's great. But I'm not going to be carrying a whole lot. I'm not the guy who's entering my purchase price in my app for every comic and watching the daily values and figuring out am I up or down or anything else. I'm not a day trader.
Yeah. If I wanted to trade stocks, I trade stocks. But I wouldn't be very good at it. I'm impatient.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with being a day trader in comic books or whatever else. As we're talking about on how you collect, that's a whole different side of people who are doing it that way.
Yep. I mean, periodically I sell books here and there. The mystery box run. That's just to help buy more stuff, right? It's not
that's the joy of collecting. That stuff. That's part of collecting in general. You always there is the collector who goes, I have this in my collection. Either it doesn't mean as much to me. Hey, T. Ravis. Doesn't mean as much to me today as it did. There were books I acquired that I thought for some reason I thought it would be something. But then as I'm going on, I start to refine my collection, and I go, oh, I don't need this. Let me pass this on to somebody who cares more for it, or there's something I want more. And so, yeah, you make that flip, you make that trade, right? We did the same thing. That's part of collecting.
A-okay, there's someone that could use it. But other than that, guys, it's 6 o'clock. Taylor Winder is about to do a live unboxing of his elusive Apocalypse box. So go ahead and check that out.
I got one piece of one piece of news though, real quick.
Take it over, Rob.
So from the if you guys are Star Wars on everything there, Star Wars, of course, just named a new director for an unnamed movie that's coming out, and the discussion. Part of the tease in it all, they mentioned that there's no plot information. It's all buried on Exegol. So, which has led to writing out a lot of speculation that potentially the book could be, or the movie could be, from the dark side perspective and focus on Exegol and the stuff that was going on there, which coincidentally happens to coincide with the current storyline that's been going on in the Darth Vader comic, where he's on his way to Exegol to go find information about all the Emperor's secrets and all that stuff. Potential spec? Who knows?
There's a lot of spec with Star Wars right now, so
just to add another one. Anyway,
right?
That's what I got.
Yep. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, on Sidekicks Talk Comics. Make sure you join us next week on Rob's channel, 5:30 Pacific Standard Time.
Hit the bell for notifications, so you'll know, and you don't have to remember. Just hit that bell. Subscribe.
Yeah, memory's hard, right?
Ring my bell. Wait, no, never mind.
Until next time, Comic Book World. Slot it up.
Collect what you want.